Coop Knows the Scoop, a First Chapter Friday read aloud video and author interview with the Word Nerd and Taryn Souders. Today, as you listen, watch for the story quote that will appear on screen. Write it down, word by word, and then follow the instructions given to you by your teacher. Hi, my name is Zieba. Welcome to my channel, Learning with the Word Nerd, and another First Chapter Friday video. This week, I'm going to be reading to you from Coop Knows the Scoop by Taryn Souders. I could tell you about this book in my own words, but sometimes when somebody else just captures it so brilliantly in their endorsement statement on the back of the book, it's just better for me to share and lean on their brilliant words than try to come up with something better on my own. So James Ponte, he's the author of City of Spies. This is what he said about this book. Coop Knows the Scoop is a gem of a mystery, with everything you're looking for in a whodunit, from the pitch-perfect setting to the heartwarming hero and a plot that will keep you guessing until the end. Now, James and I are not the only ones who adored this middle grade mystery, because if you see at the top of the book, it says an Edgar Award finalist. After I read you the first chapter, we're going to have a chance to talk with Taryn and ask her what is the Edgar Award and how did she feel being named a finalist, plus a few other great questions and behind the scenes writing process things, so you can know what it's like to write a mystery. Let me read the back so you know what this story is about, and then we will dive into the first chapter. Make sure you stick around to the end so you can hear the whole mystery quote and also my interview with Taryn. All right, the whole town is talking, and it's up to Coop to find out the truth. Windy Bottom, Georgia is usually a peaceful place. Coop helps his mom at her cafe and bookstore, hangs out with his grandpa, and bikes around with his friends Justice and Liberty. The town is full of all kinds of interesting people, and no one has ever caused a big problem. Until now. When the link to a cold case mystery is discovered beneath the playground, everyone is eager to solve it, but somehow Coop's grandpa is taking all the blame. It seems like there are a lot of secrets buried in their small town after all. Will Coop and his friends get to the bottom of the mystery and clear Gramps' name before it's too late? Let's start with Chapter 1 and find out. When the Windy Bottom Town Council voted to tear down the old playground and build a new one, no one ever imagined what lay buried beneath the rusted slide. The morning the human bones turned up and the news started flying around town, I was up to my ball cap in dirty coffee cups. My best friend Justice burst through the screened back door of A Latte Books. He slipped through the spilled water on the floor and slid to a stop, clutching the counter. "Dang it, Coop, you beat us here again." I set a wet mug on the drying rack. Figured if we finished our chores early, we could check out the grave. I'm dying to see the skeleton. The whole town's talking about it. Justice puffed out a breath of air. Heard the police are there now. Strangers think Jus and me are twins because we're both cursed with messy red hair and a truckload of freckles, not to mention we're both 13. But his real twin sister is Liberty, even though she looks nothing like him, being a blonde and, well, you know, a girl. Liberty sauntered in, joining Justice and me in the kitchen. She slouched against the counter and tossed her baseball from hand to hand. Baseball was to Liberty like oxygen was to the rest of us. That dumb old skeleton is all people have on their brains this morning. "You're just mad the police won't let you on the baseball field," Justice said. Liberty spit into the trash can. She was a Southern belle, minus the bell part. She also ran faster and slugged harder than anyone else in Windy Bottom. It's probably just some soldier left over from the Civil War. Justice tied on an apron and grabbed a tub filled with dirty dishes. "Nuh-uh, Dad said there wasn't hardly any war fought in this part of Georgia." Liberty rolled her eyes. "That doesn't mean there was nothing. Maybe he crawled home to die." "Come on, Lib," I said, tossing her an apron. We all got kitchen duty, not just Justice and me." "I've never seen a skeleton before," Justice said. "The one hanging in Group's classroom don't count." "Doesn't count," Liberty corrected. Ignoring his glare, she stood straight and shoved her baseball into her apron pocket. "And it's too late. No one can get within 100 feet of the playground." She frowned. "Or the baseball fields. The police already cordoned off the whole area." Justice sighed. "Does cordon start with a K or a C?" "C," Liberty and I answered together. Justice muttered and reached for his now dog-eared pocket dictionary. Liberty threw out vocabulary the same way she threw a fastball, smooth and unstoppable. 3 years ago, Justice started carrying around a dictionary in his back pocket after an unfortunate misunderstanding of the word rendezvous left him locked in the women's bathroom of the Piggly Wiggly for 2 hours. I thought Just was destined to spend his life one step behind in every conversation on account of him having to look up words so often, but Gramps said Just may as well pass us all with vocabulary one day. According to Gramps, life is a journey, and what we are now is not necessarily what we will be. Justice sighed. Well, at least we could see what the police are doing. Take some pictures, maybe? Mama poked her head through the kitchen door and smiled at the twins. Hey, Jess. Hey, Liv. Do y'all mind watching the counter for a while? The coffee delivery came in along with a bunch of book orders. Your folks and I need to run inventory. A couple of years ago, Liberty and Justice's folks, Mr. and Mrs. Gordon, owned the used bookstore next door. They must have tired out their imaginations giving their kids creative names because their store had just been called Used Books. But then all that changed. The inside wall between Mama's coffee shop and their bookstore had been demolished, and a Latte Books, Windy Bottom's first and only bookstore cafe, with new books, not just used ones, was where Liv, Jess, and I spent our summers. Us kids got stuck washing dishes, shelving books, or whatever else needed doing. Jess rubbed the back of his neck. Actually, ma'am, we were just about to go to the... I kicked him. Mama raised her eyebrows and stepped inside, letting the swinging door flop back and forth behind her. Cooper Goodman, she poked me with her clipboard. You're up to something, and if you think that something happens to involve the skeleton at the playground, then you've got another thing coming. The store is brimming over with people, and I need your help. Where was Gramps when I needed him? He would have let us go. In fact, I reckon he would have even given us a ride to the playground. He might be a stickler for rules, but he had his mischievous side, too. The bell dinged at the coffee counter. Mama glanced out the small rectangular window that was set in the kitchen door. It's Meriwether and Ruth. Checking the time on her watch, she sighed. I have to go. She turned to leave, but stopped and nodded at the two sisters standing at the counter. Don't forget, you'll need to bring them their order. Lord knows we don't want them trying to carry their coffee again. Not after yesterday's fiasco. Yes, ma'am. Gramps will be in later on to help. But right now, Sugar, I need you not distracted by any talk of a skeleton. She patted my cheek. Ma, I whispered. Sugar's a wimpy name, and I'd told her 1,000,000 times. Liv snorted. Mama smiled. I'm sorry. And Coop, Mama put her hand on her hip and shook her finger. Stay here. The police don't need anyone underfoot. My shoulders sagged. I promise. If you want to find out who the skeleton is, how it got there, who put it there, who is responsible for the murder, you're going to want to pick up a copy of Coop Knows the Scoop. But right now, let's go and talk to Taryn Souders about this book, about her being named an Edgar Award finalist, and her writing process. All right, readers, we are in for a treat today because we are here with Taryn Souders. Taryn, thank you so much for being here to answer our questions.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to this.
Yes, I just loved Coop. And so my first question is, what was the story spark or story seedling for you when you were starting to write this or have this idea for this book? And kind of a caveat to that is like, which came first, the character name or the title? Like chicken or the egg? Because it's so perfect. I'm just curious.
Well, I've always loved mysteries as a kid. That was my favorite genre to read growing up, and even all the way through high school, college, even as an adult, I still like to read mysteries. And so I just wanted to challenge myself to see, could I write a mystery? Because I hadn't done that before. The books I'd done in the past were just humorous, realistic fiction. So it was more of a challenge. Like, can you pull this off? And it was a lot of fun most of the time to write. It was definitely had its challenges, but the seedling of it just came from, I wanted to do, I think murder mysteries are the most fun just because the stakes are so high. I think obviously taking someone's life is probably one of the worst things you could ever do. And so you really want to see justice occur in those situations. And so that's why I chose a murder mystery, but I also don't like blood and guts. And so I wanted it to be kind of clean. So that's why I went with the skeleton. And, it's like, well, where could I put a skeleton that would just be totally unexpected? And so that's how I kind of came up with this idea of, at a playground, because it's the last place you would really expect to find one.
Right. And which came first, Coop or the title, the name or the title?
The character of Coop came first, and fun fact, I actually didn't come up with the title. The title that I had was totally different, and this is something that you may or may not know, but when you are an author with a traditional publishing company, you don't necessarily get to keep the title that you wrote. The publishing house has the right to change it on you. So originally, Coop Knows the Scoop was called Remains to be Seen, which I really liked because you had these remains that needed to be seen in order for justice to appear or to happen. But the whole theme of the story is, you know, who we ultimately become remains to be seen. We're all going to make mistakes, but hopefully we're going to learn from those mistakes.
Yeah.
And my publisher loved the title, but they said it sounded like it belonged on an adult book. So they're the ones that came up with Coop Knows the Scoop.
Well, I think they're both really great. And so maybe one day you'll write a grown-up book and you can use that other title.
I can use that title. That's right.
So the bulk of this book, one of the major settings of this book is in a coffee shop / bookshop. And to me as a word nerd, that's like my dream career. My husband says he'll support me in whatever I choose to do, but he will not support me opening a coffee shop. I don't know why, but why did you choose that kind of a shop for your story's central location?
You and I are so similar in that aspect. I think it would be so much fun to run a bookstore coffee shop. I chose that because those are two of my favorite places. I love, like, I'm like literally drinking coffee as we speak. Love coffee and I love books. Yeah, exactly. And so I just think it's such a great combination. And it's such a natural combination of, you know, those things, you expect them to go together. And there was this cute, where my in-laws lived in Texas, a cute little used bookstore coffee shop that just had a wonderful ambiance when you went in there. And so I kept thinking, well, if I ever get a chance to use this type of setting in a story, I will. And they live in a small town. And I'm like, yes, this will be perfect with Windy Bottom. And I just thought a latte books is just, it's a perfect name, honestly, for a bookstore coffee shop. And I'm just waiting for someone to create that, you know, I will go, I will support your business. Okay,
well, if I ever open one, I will call it that. And
there you go.
You
have my
come
permission
visit me.
to use that.
Yeah, you maybe want to come in the summer though, because we just talked Wisconsin is uber cold right now, compared to Florida.
So I know we're like 60 degrees today, so to us that's cold.
I think we're gonna be lucky if we get to 0. Okay, so there were a lot of characters in this book, and that's common for mysteries because you as the author keep us guessing as to who it's gonna be, who is the murderer gonna be. How did you keep track of all of those characters?
So I have with me my handy dandy notebook, and I had never used a notebook before with writing until I wrote a mystery. And it was because of what you just said. There are a lot of characters because you don't want that suspect to be so obvious. You know, when you have different people, you want to have at least, you know, I would say 4 or 5 just to make it interesting. So you're already starting off with 4 or 5 suspects. You're not even counting the main character and his family and friends and other people in town. So I used a notebook to keep everyone straight, and I've been using a notebook ever since. So this is the notebook that I currently am using for the mystery I'm working on now. But I actually have a character tab somewhere around here. And oh yeah, bios. And so now I would have a picture. This is currently Newman from Cheers, but he reminds me of a character that I'm working on now, but I would list characteristics about them. And I didn't do it for all of my characters, but definitely my main ones. I probably had 7 or 8 bios just on the people who I wanted to make sure I was being consistent with. Number one, how they looked. I can't have someone be a blonde in chapter 1 and all of a sudden they're a brunette in chapter 5. So this helped me with consistency, but also to make sure I was keeping their personalities straight, their goals, and all of that. So very helpful. Love the notebook. I will never not use a notebook in the future.
Yes. And for those of you who are listening and you want to be a writer, like what a fun activity when you're starting a story is to go online and find a picture, or like if it was a movie, what celebrity would be cast in that. And, you know, I loved all of the things that stayed consistent all the way through, you know, Justice with his dictionary and Liberty with her ball, and Coop always correcting people. My name is Coop, not Cooper. So good job. The notebook helped you stay consistent all the way through.
Absolutely.
So this next question is kind of related to that in the plot. So there is a lot going on in the plot as well as with the characters. And you have to, you know, throw out those red herrings, those little like different paths that it could possibly go. So how did you keep that all straight when you were working on the story? And did you always know who the murderer was, or did that like surprise you organically as you wrote the story?
So there's there's two types of writers that they say exist in the world, and those are your plotters and your pantsers. And your plotters are the ones that they'll plot everything out, they'll outline, they'll have notes everywhere. And then your pantsers are the people who write by the seat of their pants. They're just sitting down at their computer that day and saying, all right, where's my story taking me today? I used to be a pantser. I am no longer a pantser. Mysteries have taught me I need to plot. And so I did plot this one out, not in huge detail, but I definitely knew who the murderer was, how they did it, why they did it, and all of that before I started writing the mystery. You need to have that in your head, because you're right, you have to have red herrings, which a red herring, if you're unfamiliar with that term, is a false or misleading clue that is purposefully put into a story to mislead or distract you. And it's up to my job as the writer to put those in and try to mislead you. And it's up to your job as the reader and the detective's job in the story to figure out which clues are legit and which ones are false. And so I wanted to make sure that my red herrings and my legit clues were all introduced in the correct order, because if I get it out of order, I might give away the murderer way too easily, and I don't want to do that. So I used my notebook, but we also have a giant dry erase board in our dining room. And I would outline on that. I would write ideas on that. And then I would like step back and I would take a picture on my phone. And then I would erase the board and I would fill it up with more ideas and take a picture. And then all I had to do was like come up to my office and print the pictures off on a piece of paper and stick it in my notebook. And I would have my outline. I would know where I need this story to go. So it was a very general outline, but again, I had my details as well, just they were on a different piece of paper, and I knew what order I was going to be introducing them.
I love that too, because it's such a good mix of like old school, like handwriting things out, but using technology to capture that process so that you can access it later, so you don't need like 27 giant whiteboards.
That's right.
Or get nervous that somebody's going to come in and erase it, and then you're, yes. out of luck.
And my family luckily has gotten to the point where, like, if they see I have filled it up with stuff, they'll say, "Has this been photographed yet? Can I erase it?" They're good about asking, which is nice. They're well trained.
Good. All right, my last question for you is about the Edgar Award. So on the front cover, it says an Edgar Award finalist. Congratulations. Can you tell us a little bit about what is the Edgar Award and how did you feel being a top contender, being this is your first mystery?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Okay, so first of all, I'll show you, right? Making a little bit of noise. That right there, that's the Edgar Award. And there's a picture of Edgar Allan Poe. And the Edgar Award is, it's an award that is given to mystery writers, and it's kind of like one of the best awards that you can get. Edgar Allan Poe is kind of the father of mysteries. So Agatha Christie, she's known as the queen of mysteries or the mother of mysteries. Well, Edgar Allan Poe is the father of mysteries and horror, suspense, that sort of thing. And so the Edgars are given every January on his birthday. I believe it's like the 22nd or the 25th. It's somewhere in that week. And that's when they list the nominees. And then the actual winner is announced in the spring. But I was so excited. Being an Edgar nominee was a bucket list item for me, actually. And the great thing about this is that I knew they were announcing the nominees sometime that week, but I didn't know what time, and I wasn't just going to like stay glued to my computer. And I was up at the library, volunteering at my son's library, putting stuff away, and I got a phone call from James Ponti. And James Ponti has written The Trapped, Vanished, Framed, City Spies, Dead City, tons of books, and he has won. He's been nominated for the Edgar multiple times, and he's won it at least once, possibly more. And I get a phone call from him, and he said, "So did you hear the news?" I said, "What news?" And he said, "You're an Edgar nominee." And I was like, "Are you kidding?" I screamed in the library, which you should never do, but I was so excited. And my librarian was right there. She's like, "What? And I'm like, "I'm an Edgar nominee." And we were very, very excited. And she ended up like sending out a blast email to all the teachers at school. And it was really fun. She was just as excited as I was. But I loved being an Edgar nominee. It meant a lot. I hope the next one I have out, hope that becomes a nominee. It'd be great to win. But honestly, just being nominated, to know that my book was one of the top 5 mysteries of all the mysteries published that year that they thought was like worthy of being nominated. It
Yeah.
just was an amazing feeling.
Is there a special category for kids' books, or are they all together?
No, they have adult, they have nonfiction, they have TV dramas, they have juvenile, and that's what Coop Knows the Scoop is it was considered a juvenile mystery, so it's in the middle grade. They even have young adult. They've got there's short story, all different categories. But yes, it's exciting.
That is very cool. Congratulations. Well, thank you for answering these questions. Before you go, if you want to tell us a little bit about what you're working on next or what we can expect next from you, and where readers can get a hold of you easiest if they have more questions.
Yeah, I'll start with where you can get a hold of me. I have a website. It's www.tarynsouders.com, and it's on the back of any of my books. Or you can just Google my name and it will pop up, and you can click on that. If you have any questions, I have a contact tab, and you can just click on that and shoot me an email. I always write back, I promise. And then what I'm currently working on is well, actually, I'm working on a new mystery, but I have another one coming out July 11th, and it's called The Mystery of the Radcliffe Riddle. And I would love to share the screen, or to share what that cover looks like with you. But this is what it looks like right here.
Ooh.
And I am very, very much excited about this. But we have our main character. His name is Grady Judd. And then we have Clemmy Powell. And we have back here is Thad, or his real name's Thaddeus, but he goes by Thad Carlton. And then this little furball right here, this is Ophelia. And she pops in and out of the story. But this is a mystery treasure hunt. And there's also a homicide. So it's kind of a mystery that was taken to the extreme, or I'm sorry, a treasure hunt taken to the extreme. So if you like treasure hunt stories, if you are curious what that's all about, I totally hope that you guys read The Mystery of the Radcliffe Riddle. Mark your calendars. July 11th is when it comes out. And if you guys end up following me on social media, I do lots of giveaways that lead up to a book release. And so maybe you can get in on some of that action.
Awesome. Awesome. And maybe it'll show up as a First Chapter Friday video next year.
That would be fantastic.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time, Taryn. Thank you for a wonderful mystery. We loved it. We will see you again next week, readers, for another First Chapter Friday video.
Thank you for having me.
To continue reading Coop Knows the Scoop by Taryn Souders, pick up a copy from your school library, purchase one from your local indie bookstore, or grab it via the link in the description box. This week's mystery quote says, "Life is a journey, and what we are now is not necessarily what we will be." Then be sure to check out the rest of the First Chapter Friday playlist. You guys, I have over 100 middle grade and young adult stories waiting there for you, many of them with author interviews like this one. Thanks so much for joining me on my channel, Learning with the Word Nerd. I hope you'll come back again for more First Chapter Friday videos, brain breaks, and other great content. You can find me online at these places, which I've linked below. See you again next time, and happy reading.